Hey, what's going on, y'all? Imara Ifawuyi here from Find Your Free. And today I want to talk to you all about feeling like an outsider, feeling like you don't belong in the country you're from. And I think a lot of us are tapping into this feeling as of late, after years of, living in especially the United States and realizing that, a lot of aspects of the way things are done there, the politics, the lifestyle, and everything is not an actual fit for you. So I feel like a lot of us are becoming more aware of this reality of feeling like outsiders right now. So I want to address that. Peace and love. It is a beautiful Friday, kind of a rainy Friday here in Sao Paulo. And I'm just trying to, make more use of this new microphone and, address more topics just seated instead of moving around all the time and walking around like I've been doing because I usually take you guys on my walks with me. Um, but yeah, well, let's get into it. Okay, I'm gonna play a little music for just a minute and just see if anyone comes on because it'd be super slow in the beginning. I hope you guys can hear me well. This is a microphone that I've been trying to get the sound the way I want it, and I'm still not sure how I feel about it yet. So hopefully folks can hear me well when they come on. Let me get started here in a little bit. It's a beautiful day, and we've been having a lot of rain here in Sao Paulo. So, for those of you who haven't been on the actual channel before, my name is Imara, and I am based in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I hope you guys can hear me. My children and I have been living in Sao Paulo for the last over a year and a half now. And prior to that, we were here for a year and a half during the pandemic. So it's been about a total of 3 years with my children. And then I've lived in Brazil prior to being a mother. So I've had kind of, a lot of back and forth here to Brazil. And yeah, I want to get going and see, how I can be more support to those who are interested in this country, who are interested just in general in moving abroad with children and all of that good stuff. So let's talk about it. Today I wanted to talk about why a lot of us feel like we don't necessarily belong, like especially Americans. I find a lot of us feel out of place in that country, and especially right now as the U.S. is at war with different countries. They're showing, what bullies they've always been: financial bullies, military bullies, and all of the negative attributes of the United States empire. A lot of us are waking up right now to the reality and realizing that, they don't even want to be somewhere where, the people are not respected, cared for, or, appreciated by the government, by the powers that be. Um, so one of the things, for me, I have been living internationally with my kids for a lot of years, in and out, but mostly out. So we've been living out of the country for the bulk of the time. My daughter is 20, almost 21 next month. So since she was 1 years old, we have been living abroad, mostly. And so, one of the things that I can actually say about this idea of feeling out of place is that that is something that is not new to me or unusual to me at all. Like, it is something that I have always felt. Usually with people, those of us that are that have a sense of being outsiders or never fully feeling comfortable in the American system and in that country, the feeling tends to start early. So for me, I remember growing up, and a lot of this had to do with like childhood trauma and stuff like that as well. But just feeling out of place, feeling like, I wasn't being nurtured in the environment growing up as a Black girl in California, which I grew up in Central California. It was super racist. Don't let nobody tell you California is this super, um, liberal place, because the liberalism isn't actually like a mask really for California, but California was the most racist place I think I've ever been. And I've lived in the Northeast, I've lived in the South, I've lived all over. And so growing up there, I never felt like I belonged. But as I grew into a young woman and was getting ready to go to college at 17, because I left at 17, the first place I went was to San Diego, which was right on the border of Mexico. And so my first experience internationally was in Mexico. And I just remember, going back and forth to Mexico. As soon as I got the opportunity to go abroad and experience something different than the United States, something different than this system that I had been growing up in, I was hooked. Okay, I would go back and forth from San Diego to Mexico every weekend. I was, going beyond Tijuana. I was going to Rosarita. I was, going in more into the country by vehicle, however I could get in. I wanted to experience something different than what I had been experiencing as a young, sister growing up in California in America, right? And so, what you experience as someone who doesn't quite feel, like you're in the right place for you, is just this sense of wanting to or being curious about what's out there. And I think that, that's a healthy thing to have, because America has not done well, has not done good by especially Black people, and I think we all know that. Okay, for many years we were the only ones that were taking and feeling the brunt of the abuse of that country. Now other people are starting to see and experience what it's like to be abused by the government in a very outright way, right? And so, you become more curious. You want to know more about the wider world. You want to know more about what's out there. How do other people live? How do other governments function? How are brown folks, Black folks, whatever you want to call it, treated in other places, right? And so I had that curiosity from pretty young, teenage years. And so Mexico was my first experience with that, getting into that, exploring it a little bit more. Um, and once you get out and you travel and you're out in the world, your feelings become validated more. You do become more, you feel like the things that you've been tapping into internally and the feelings you've had really do have relevance, because travel validates that for you, because you realize every nation, every culture doesn't operate the same as the one you're from. So here in America, it's a very much a rat race culture. It's all about being successful, pushing yourself to the limits, having less concern with family, having less concern with personal growth, having less concern with the things that actually mean something, and more concerned with, in this day and era, social media, making money, proving you're successful, holding up all these standards that everyone just is not going to be able to hold up, basically. And so right now, when you get out and you experience something else, you realize the whole world doesn't operate that way. Right now, I live in Brazil. This is a country where I can't really say how much of the government has to do with this, but the people themselves, they're more cohesive. Their culture is more cohesive. They honor humanity and other people more. Now, we know the history of this country is very much colonial. They very much have not done right by Black and brown and indigenous people, right? But where it stands right now in 2026, your personal experience here will be one where you feel safer, you feel appreciated more as a brown woman, you feel like, hey, the government is actually on my side in certain ways. Like, it's literally illegal to do any outright racist stuff in this country. So to call someone a racist, a name based upon their skin color, to be nasty to them, to mistreat them, to discriminate against them because of that. And so while it might be, just a surface level band-aid for the greater systemic issues that they're having here in Brazil with balancing things and making sure that brown folk basically get the reparations and get the opportunities in life that they deserve for building this country. Even though that it might be a band-aid, it's still something that makes you feel like, well, we're moving in the right direction. You literally, have more protections around your existence here somewhere like Brazil. So it feels more humane. And I tell people that all the time. The first thing I think of when people ask me why Brazil over, being at home is that I want to feel that I live around people who actually honor and respect humanity, other people, you know. That's a big deal to me. That's something that I don't think should be taken lightly. In America, I'm not going to say we don't have that, but because there's so much emphasis on, um, again, being successful, making a bunch of money, having more than other people, being able to show off all of your accounts and your investments and your actual assets and all of these things, social media, all of these surface level things, the quality of life is not the experience that I ever wanted to have. Okay. And I think, for a lot of people who are thinking about traveling globally right now, I don't think it's a good time for haphazard travel, but I do, in other words, it doesn't feel like it's time to be out just traveling just for the sake of traveling. But if you know you want to go somewhere else, you know you want to have a different experience somewhere else, live somewhere else, I think it is a good time to get there and go and have that experience, set up everything so that you can stay for the long haul and go and do that because the way things are looking with the US and the energy that we know exists there, and this is beyond just the fact that they're at war overseas. This is the war that's internal in the United States. It's a war against people. It's the government against the people. It's the sane and the sold against those who don't have that. You know what I mean? And so I think right now is a good time to branch out and to get past all of these myths around, you needing to stay in one place and fight for your home. Wherever you're from, you need to stay grounded and fight for it and don't let them take it and do it all. And you need to stay rooted. You look like a rolling stone going from place to place. That nomadic lifestyle doesn't work. And it's like none of that is actually true. And it just really depends on the person and the family because some people do really well and thrive, by having, their tentacles and their roots in different places. And then some just need to shift, their foundation and where they're rooted at. So some people just need to leave the US and go and experience something different. Okay, and for some of us, where we feel like global citizens, I've always known I was a global citizen since the 90s. I was aware of that about myself. And so I never identified with the United States, even though I do understand my ancestors are indigenous to the United States because um, I always felt global. I always felt like, you know, I could be wherever I wanted and would feel at home in some way. So these are some of the things, to think about as you're wondering, why you don't feel quite as grounded as you might like in the US, why even though you have family and you have connections and all these things, it still doesn't feel like home. This is because sometimes it just straight up isn't home. Sometimes you need to branch out, and that calling is there for you. And when it's there, it doesn't usually go away until you answer it, right? So some of the trade-offs, of living internationally versus just staying rooted home. Obviously, though it's amazing to go and explore other cultures, there is a sense of rootlessness, of need to build community in other foreign places, and all of the challenges that come with that. There's also, the need to be adaptable and always be able to accept some of the differences that exist in other places that you just aren't used to, being in the United States. And also, their identity issues can begin to develop because sometimes when you're somewhere else and you're the only person or one of the only people who is an outsider in that place, it can start to feel a little jarring, like, okay, I'm here, but these ain't my people. And so all of these things will have to be reckoned with. You'll have to deal with them as you branch out and attempt to experience different things out in the world. But I would never say that, if you have that calling, it's best to just ignore it and stay safe, because it's that staying safe that's keeping a lot of Americans in particular very ignorant to what's happening in the world, very ignorant to what has been happening in America, even though I see a lot of us are waking up now. Um, but it's important that you stretch yourself, that you go out of your comfort zone, that you go and try to have different experiences so that you can see why that calling is there. Why don't I feel at home in the place that I'm actually from, right? So, these are some of the things that I think are really, really important to consider as you're shifting or considering shifting and moving abroad. And, moving abroad is, nobody said it's for the weak. It's not for those who are very sensitive, who don't have a lot of stay with it and ability to keep pressing through circumstances that are a little more challenging, a little more heavy. But it's very doable, and usually it's very well worth it, especially if you're coming from a society that is broken, such as the U.S. Okay, so it's worth it. Here in Brazil, I mean, I can tell stories about my life here. Um, the first time I came here was, in 2001, so we're talking 25 years ago now. And I just remember arriving in Salvador, which is where I lived for a year, and just being blown away by the people, the presence, the devotion to art, to creativity, to ancestral culture, to not letting anyone, no colonizer, take you away from what you know is yours. That was something that was very strong, very powerful in Salvador. For those of you who are not familiar with Brazil and the different regions, Salvador is in Bahia. It's up north from where I live now in Sao Paulo, and it is a hub of just folks that look like me, brown folks, chocolate folks, lots of us, highly melanated people, indigenous people, and they live there in a very rich, and audacious fashion where it's like it's all the indigenous Afro, the culture, and it's like, if you're gonna be up there, you better be okay with that, because that's what it is up there. And it's loud, and it's black folk everywhere, doing what they do, playing capoeira, practicing candomblé, um, doing sambas, expressing themselves through drum and dance and music in the streets all over the place. It's a very, very vivid and beautiful experience. And so when I first arrived 25 years ago, I fell head over heels. I knew that Brazil was a place that I would want to live my life out, but it took me a while to get back here and to really, really put that plan into action after I left the first time. And so, it's been a long time that I've wanted to come back to this energy here and just sit with it and not be rushed out and not feel like I have to be, passing through, and really sit with the richness of it, which is just something that I know for me, I've never really experienced heavily in the US. Things are just so disjointed, they're so disconnected there. It's really hard to make, I wouldn't say hard to make connections, because I have some wonderful sister friends in the US that I've been friends with for 15, 20 years, 25, 30 years, right? Amazing people, amazing women, but the community can be very disjointed, and there's nothing really that like connects folks and keeps them connected so that they stay around each other and they really, really honor those relationships, unless they're like blood family. But even that, I think we all know the family can be very disjointed in the US. My family is very disjointed, very disconnected. So, it's just a culture that once you come out of it and you come and you see how other people live in other places and the things that they do to keep things cohesive. For instance, here in Brazil, they have a tradition called candomblé. It's similar to the Ifa tradition of the Yoruba in West Africa. They say that is the influence. I mean, it must be because they have everything in common, those traditions, right? And so um, this tradition is so commonly practiced in Brazil by brown and black folk that, um, it's something that keeps families together. You know what I mean? Doing ritual together, um, appreciating nature together, living on land together in places like they call quilombos, and doing all these things and keeping these ancestral connections, so that there is cohesiveness. There isn't this disconnected energy that we're so used to as Americans and that we have normalized. There's things that keep them close, in place. And this is what I feel like we are missing in America, especially as brown people, that has really kind of deteriorated our entire ability to have like a real culture outside of like hip hop and stuff like that. I mean, one thing about black folk, everywhere we're gonna be doing music, and it's gonna be cultures developed around whatever music we push forward, and everybody's gonna be wanting to get on board and be a part of it. That's something that's everywhere. But to have these traditions of doing ritual, of spiritual practices, of things like that, like what they have down here, is something that you can't deny the impact that that has had on the black and brown people. So even though they are marginalized here, they don't have as much options in terms of betterment of their own personal lives, in terms of becoming, super wealthy and having a lot of access to resources and stuff like that. They still have this richness and this resource of being connected to their ancestral culture, which is a richness that really money can't even really buy that. Because you got hella people in the US that have money, they've got finances, but they don't got no rootedness. They're not connected. You know what I mean? Their families are a mess, all this stuff. So these are some of the things that I really appreciate about going abroad and having lived in, various countries. So not only just visited, but lived in various countries in West Africa, in Central and South America, in the Caribbean, in the Pacific Islands, in Europe even. I've gotten a chance to really appreciate, this difference, and to be able to show it to my children, and to be able to, so I know for my children, they probably in a certain way feel very disconnected from the US when they're there, which is rarely, because now we've had the experiences of being in communities, even living in the Caribbean. That people, there's a sense of community, there's a sense of people wanting to come together as a ritual, as a thing that has to happen for life to flow. You know what I mean? And all of this is just part of the way of life there. And they have their food and they have their language that's different from the colonizers' language and all of that. Americans, Black Americans, brown folk, we lost a lot of that. And so having been able to distance myself through being abroad has allowed me to really, really tune in to, the vastness of life experience, right? And so, yeah, for those of you who are considering or thinking about trying something different, having a different experience, you don't feel like you fit in the US, and this is a lot of people right now, because the US is really showing out right now. If you feel like that fit is not there, it's a good time to launch out, and not necessarily as a nomad, because you got to, just looking back at everything that just went down in the GCC, in the Arab countries and stuff, and the fact that there does appear to be a world war getting, cracking right now, sad to say, it might not be time to be going from place to place. But if you can identify a good location where you can go and have a humane and pleasant experience for the long haul, you know how you can stay long term, you've done your research, and you feel like that option could be a good one for you, I suggest you make it happen and do it as soon as you can. Because we don't know, maybe the door is closing for a lot of travel in general, especially with the coming increases in the cost of oil that we, because of this stupid war, is inevitable, is coming. That's going to impact the capacity for people to get out, to travel, and to do things. Because guess what? Prices are going to be They're going to be crazy. And that's going to be soon. So if you feel the call, now is a good time to look into it. Hey, girl. Mama Nee, what's going on, girl? I'm so excited. I had just come from looking at something else, and I see you was in here. Yeah, y'all. So it is a thing to feel out of place, um, and to feel like the type of person you are is not being honored in somewhere like America, because they don't the humanity just is not appreciated on that level. Hey, girl. In the US, and it never really has been. I know for me, I've been awake and aware for a very long time, back, going back well into my young womanhood, and I'm not really a young woman like that no more. Young-ish, but and definitely young here. But back when I was back in the '90s, I just could see that this was just nowhere to be thinking about raising a child or anything like that. I just never felt it, and so this is why I have been gone for so long. I've been, in and out for so long. And so, for those of you who are interested in that, as you know, I'm here in Brazil. If you feel a call, come through. We live pretty well here. It doesn't mean we're not going to get caught up in some mess in the future, but for now, it's a good place to come and have a more human experience than maybe just being stuck in the US constantly. Um, Hit me up. I'm going to put some links below so you can connect with me. We are scheduling tours. We have an artist. We're setting up artists basically to be able to come out here and tap into some of the studios here in Sao Paulo. So we have some residencies in place, and yeah, we're doing all kinds of tours. So if you are interested in coming and experiencing plant medicine, which is an actual big part of the culture here in Brazil. I'm not saying everybody does plant medicine, but it's very readily accessible if you're interested in that. If you want to have more of a spiritual growth process utilizing the herbs of the Amazons, of the indigenous people. These are things that we can facilitate here. And just in general, a basic travel and visit experience and a tour experience around Sao Paulo. And we also help and assist with tours in Bahia up north. Those services are available. So it's kind of like a concierge. If you want to experience Brazil, we are here, come through. But overall, just saying on this video, my main point was, listen, I totally can identify with, not feeling like out of place, in your family, feeling out of place in your country, feeling like, there's something more out there. And it's a good idea, if you feel that, to branch out and experience it and get out there. And like I said, right now might be not the best time to be bopping from place to place, just because I mean we've seen what happened to folks in the UAE, in Qatar, and all those folks that are still stuck overseas right now trying to figure out how the hell to get out of there in that mess, in that unpredictable situation, and all the strikes and the missiles and all of that. So maybe it's not time to, one, be in that region, or to be doing too much. But if you feel the need to get out, there are resources available for you to help you to do those transitions and to make that happen. Hey y'all, who's in here? Anyone? Hey, Mama Need, girl, what's going on? Does anyone have any questions? I talked earlier on this video, if you just came on, about feeling out of place, what that can look like, how to, process that, and what, kind of options you have for experimenting and expressing, or finding your belonging in the world more, right? Um, and then we talked about a little bit about my background, because I have been a black sheep, I guess you could say, of society and my family for many, many years. So I know about that feeling of not belonging, not being able to relate, and needing to see what else is available for me as an option. And so I've always been very devotional to that since I was, like maybe 20. And, that's a lot of years now. So does anyone have any questions about anything around traveling with children, um, you know, anything around that feeling of, not feeling like you fit, like you are actually where you belong. I've been seeing a lot of people on Instagram. I'm off of TikTok now, but I've been seeing a lot of people on Instagram talk about, traveling and moving with urgency right now. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, some people are doing fine and they feel like they're in a good place, in a good position in the States. So it's not for everyone. It's for those who really feel called, you know, to get out. Some folks are going to stay in the States. They're going to find their village and their tribe and move within that and create that kind of haven for themselves there. But some of us, we need to get out. We need to stretch. We need to have a different experience. And so, yeah, that is available to you. There's a lot of places to go now because a lot of folks are, I know, headed to Southeast Asia is a big one for Black folk right now, brown folk. A lot of us are going to Southeast Asia. A lot of us are moving around in parts of Europe. For me, Europe is just too close to Asia, too close to everything that's going on out there right now. I don't really feel Europe. I don't think they're on solid ground either. The top 5 locations in South America to consider for short term. Oh, good question. How short term, Janine? Monique? Like we talking about a couple of weeks or like a staycation where you stay a few months? Because I would say here in South America, the best countries right now, a lot of people are really enjoying Colombia. Colombia has been kind of on the target list and has been vocalized by Big T several times here in the last months. But we can't move in fear right now. Colombia is relatively stable as long as you stay out of the areas where there's cartels and they're doing all that mess. And a lot of people are enjoying life there on the coast, in Cali, in Medellin, Colombia, places like that. It's very beautiful there. 3 months, so a little more like a staycation. So that I think that could be a good choice. I know it's relatively easy to get a visa and be able to stay for 3 to 6 months in Colombia. Um, Ecuador is going through some things. Prior, I would have suggested Ecuador, but Ecuador is going through, the U.S. supposedly has troops on the ground there doing something so called cleaning up the cartel there. So I wouldn't really suggest that. Brazil is holding it down right now. We got a lot of stability here right now. Obviously, you don't want to be in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro or anything like that. But other than that, this is a peaceful country. It's a peaceful country. There's a lot of peace in a lot of places here, including where I live in Sao Paulo. So I would highly suggest Sao Paulo for those who want an urban Brazil experience that gives you access to a lot of nature-esque locales, and you can move around and experience, all of what Brazil has to offer, which is very much nature, it's medicine, it's indigenous culture, it's Black folks culture, indigenous culture. It's everything. Brazil has everything. It is a gigantic country. Hey, Pamela, girl, what's going on? Good to see you on here. Yeah. So and then you see, so that's I've named 2 so far. So the tricky thing about South America is that some of these countries have a background of being very Nazi friendly, including parts of Brazil in the south. A lot of the Nazis after World War II came here, so it's very white down there, and there's a lot of like, you know, people whose ancestors was Nazis straight up. So we don't really fool around down there in the south of Brazil. Brazil is like cut off, and then once you go from like the central south to the north, it's brown folk. We there, you know. So that's how Brazil works. Well, you could go down there, but you might not have the best experience. And it's also they got German cities and different. They got a whole lot of shit going on in the south of this country that I just don't really fool with. I might will pass through for a few days, but I wouldn't even think about staying down there. But you also have countries like Argentina. No, okay, no, and no, very racist. I know a lot of Argentinians because a lot of them are here in Brazil. Just no. So you wouldn't go there. Paraguay is known for being very conservative and strange politically, I wouldn't suggest that. So there's not a ton of countries down here that I would suggest. I think Central America, you have more options. So, you have Panama in Central America, which is pretty stable and cool for folks mostly. Costa Rica, I've lived there. You could do that. It's chill for now, even though now they're part of the Shields of the America summit plan that Big T and them got to try to bust into all these countries and do these cartel hits or whatever. So that's weird because, Costa Rica is somewhere where they are so neutral. You don't hear about them in no mess, but they signed on to that. So that's concerning. All through Central America, I mean, Nicaragua, some people really enjoy and love. I mean, you could go all through Central America, obviously. Mexico, Belize is a really good one. So those are great. But for South America, I would say Brazil, Colombia right now, maybe Peru would be your best bets. Peru is amazing, but you got to be wanting to be all up in the mountains and doing all of that type of, exploring these historic sites. And it's kind of that energy, unless you're like in Lima and you want to do just like our urban South American experience. Chile is good. I have a cousin who has been living in South America for many years in Chile with his wife, and now they live in Panama. So Chile is a good one, good wine, very kind of European experience. If you're into that, that's not my thing. So I'm not interested in any of those countries. Oh, well, hey, Maria, thanks for coming on and thanks for taking notes. So yeah, that was a really good question, Mama Nee. Thank you. Yeah, so that is those are my suggestions. And so it's a lot down here you can do and feel good about. But I would just be aware everything needs to be looked at with the lens of what's happening geopolitically right now. It just needs to. And if we do that, we'll start to feel like there's nowhere to go in the world. But there are specific places. As we know, when Big T says something, a lot of times they end up following up on it. So right now they're targeting Cuba. They have been doing massive destructive activities down in the Caribbean, causing dissension, causing issues in various Caribbean countries. They did what they did in Venezuela. They're overseas now. They went to Greenland with the bullshit. So, as we know, if they mention you or if there's any kind of look in your direction, wherever you at in the world, it could be some mess popping off. So I think we know right now that anywhere we go, we just have to ground down and just be confident with it because we don't know where it's safe and where it's cool. But I would have the lens of like the Shield of the Americas, um, recent summit, and the islands and the countries that have signed on for that because they're for sure going to have military activity coming in there involving the United States here in the next probably year or two. I would be looking at the document that I've talked about so much and forgot the name of it that they released in November of last year that was outlining what the global plan is for the US in terms of security. Okay, so the security strategy, I forget what the first word is. That's another one that we need to be aware of. So any movements we make right now needs to be looked at through that lens, because that's it. And so I feel good down here where I'm at, but I'm also paying close attention, and that's all there is to it. Anyone have any other questions? I can stay on and I'm not in a rush. So I would love to answer questions about anything, or stay, have comments. Anyone got any comments about anything? Because it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. I've been kind of keeping track and keeping up to date on some of what's happening in the Middle East right now. Some of the YouTubers that I have been following that have been stuck out there, like this one black couple from New York City, and some other folks, that finally were able to get out that have been stuck for 8, 9, 10 days out there with the missiles coming through Qatar and all of that. That was crazy, and the this is the reality that we're dealing with right now. It's the instability, the things that we're used to that we thought we were good doing, and as Americans we would be protected. We're realizing those protections are not there. You know how many tens of thousands of Americans have been stuck in the Middle East with no support from the actual government when they have all the capacity to help people get out of there. Meanwhile, from day one, part like Uganda was coming in and getting their people. Um, the UK was coming in and getting their people. Other countries were coming in and transporting their folks out of there as best as they could. Because it's like, it's just not right to even be doing all of that, knowing that all them citizens is out there. So this is we're dealing with realizing that we don't really have no safety nets like that. We have to really figure out what we could be and stand strong, there, whatever it is, having a farm, living off grid, whatever we're doing, wherever we're at. We just need to know that it's on us. It's no safety nets no more. And for me, like I said, I never felt comfortable in the US. This is going way, way, way back. Even when I was supposed to be, being a college student, even when I was growing up out there, I just always felt like real alien. Growing up, particularly in California, where it was hella racist, hella like the worst. I experienced the worst racism there. And just dealing with just obnoxious Americans, I never felt comfortable there. So for me to be, living abroad, living in Brazil, experiencing just the humanity of the culture and the kindness of people, like I can tell you right now, if I leave my house, the amount of good interactions and open and warm experiences I will have will just be like back to back to back. Like it's such a kind and warm environment. Now, part of that is, people in my area, they're used to seeing me. So if I go in the grocery store, I get mad love. If I go, it's also like my neighborhood, So that's normal for you to have a really good experience in places where people know you. But just in general, there's a warmth, there's a kindness, there's a softness to the energy. And then there's a joy because this is a culture that focuses on joy and it emphasizes joy and connection. So here it's very easy for you to just get off into things with other people and just be taken in the moment with that. So I love that about Brazil. It's a lot going on, and while all the confusion, the USA has started attacking its own citizens with, yeah, it's a lot going on, Maria, always, and it's nothing new, but a lot of people are becoming more aware of it now. Pamela, they were talking about people signing on to the STEP program before leaving the country as a safety net. Not sure if that is okay. Yeah, so that's probably signing up with the embassy. They always kind of, want us supposedly to let them know where we're at and sign up at the embassy when we're overseas. I don't ever do it. I'm gonna keep it real, especially here because I don't even plan on unless something happens. I'm kind of just here. Um, but yeah, I'll have to look into the STEP program because I haven't really looked into that. I don't even know if I know what it is, but I do know that even with the people that's overseas right now, they gave them a phone number when all of the fighting started, and the missile strikes and stuff. A phone number that they called, and all they got was a message saying, the U.S. government will not be able to assist you. Travel, whatever, the state travel, whatever.gov will not be able to assist you in getting back overseas. So figure it out. Child, I have seen some harrowing journeys of people who were trying to get out of there, going from country to country, going from Qatar to UAE, trying to get to Saudi so they could fly out of some random airport in Saudi that they thought was safe. I have seen some crazy stuff. I said, my God, and it just shows you that right now is not the best time to be doing, unnecessary travel. I mean, that's obvious. That's why I said if you feel like you need to move, you need to leave the US, probably need to, get that plan in order ASAP and go ahead and act on it. Okay. Because what they're setting up now, and I don't like to get too political on here, but it seemed like with them emphasizing there's going to be some strikes in California, and they keep bringing this up and trying to put it in people's minds and get it in our heads that something's going to be cracking in California. It looked like they're going to set something off in California, is what it looks like, and try to blame, you know who. So, we got things coming down the pipeline and they're already letting us know what they got up their sleeves. So it's just like, there's better ways to live. You feel me? Like there's better ways to live. So so as of last year, and this is another big T thing, because before when I came to Brazil last, we still didn't need visas. It was free. Americans could come and go, but you would only be able to stay 6 months out of the year. Now, because of Big T messing with Brazil and bothering them about some other political nonsense and being all up in their sovereignty. Brazil has asserted itself in different ways, and one of them is by forcing that mutuality with visas. So now you have to have a visa. It's relatively easy to get online, but it allows you to come and stay for 3 months, and then at that point, you would renew it with the Policia Federal, the federal police here, for another 3 months. So you get a total of 6 months either way it go. I mean, I have a residency through another method. But a lot of people, if they do want to go or come here and stay for a while, they're going to go ahead and apply for that digital nomad visa or whatever. The other residencies that you would get here are very pricey. So you would have to have them well into six figures to invest here in order to get those actual residency options. But we do have that digital nomad visa available. So yeah, that's that staycation right there. You don't even have to renew it at 3 months. You go ahead and get the original tourist visa to Brazil. You come, you stay 3 months, check it out, and go from there. So there it is right there. But before it was real loosey goosey. Now, when I came here 25 years ago, it was not loosey goosey. I needed a visa to come to Brazil back then. But they have loosened up over the years. But as a lot of these countries are doing reciprocation now. Shit, some of the countries in West Africa that's fighting, colonialism real hard out there, like Burkina Faso, I think they closed things down. Don't even want Americans coming up in there no more because of the reciprocation. Because Big T keeps talking all this shit, talking about this country, these people can't come, these people can't come. They're all countries with black folk or brown folk. They have made a whole long list of countries that were not welcome to apply for visas to the U.S. right now. So you do have like a reciprocation thing going on. So yeah, Brazil's complex, y'all. It's a complex society, but one thing about it is you're not going to miss the kindness and the softness of things and the ability to kind of just breathe when you come here. And so if that's something that you're looking for, you feel like you just need to simplify allow your mind to rest and not have to be thinking about, just the stupid stuff. Like I don't think about being trafficked here or my children being trafficked. My kids move around on their own here. If I was in the States, I promise you, even with my youngest being 14, he probably would barely even be out of my sight because I just, no, I'm not doing it. So, you know, at this point, just to have that peace of mind where I can feel comfortable with my children moving around, where I can feel comfortable with just my safety and my life in general here. I'm very grateful for that because I have never felt that security in the States, and I always felt like things could be much simpler, you know. Um, so yeah. Anyone have any other statements, comments? Pamela, what's going on? You at work? Yeah, I appreciate those of you who have come on and stay with me. Y'all so sweet. I'm gonna try to come on here and like sit down and take my time and do these videos. One of the issues I've been having is just always on the move. I'm always out walking and doing stuff, so I'll be doing my live streams in that way. But it's you can't. You don't think straight when you also trying to breathe and walk and so I'm gonna just do take time and do these videos and talk to y'all because like I said, it's a time where people are trying to figure out their positioning in the world and what how they can assist and support their mental health really, Because for me, like, and everybody's not like this. Some people are sturdy. They have sturdy mental health. They can be in the U.S. They can create a little cave around themselves and just deal with their lives and not be disturbed. I feel very mentally disturbed out there, so that is why you see I'm gone. People who know me, like Mama Nee, like I need to be out. I got to be somewhere else on a regular basis. And so for those who are feeling very perturbed and disturbed by that energy, and you have to understand, they are doing things that we don't understand in terms of frequencies and radio frequencies. And so not to say the whole world is not in on that, because all these governments and countries, all this technology is emitting these frequencies like you speak about a lot, Maria, but a U.S. is using them as weapons in a very heavy way. So, that is going to affect your own electromagnetic field. It's going to affect your own frequency. It's going to make you feel a way that you might not naturally feel if you were in a more natural, normal environment. But believe me, I'm in the city, so 5G is here, 4G, everything. It's not like we're free of that anywhere in the world, but it's the weaponization of these things that is happening in the U.S. on such a heavy level that is a problematic for me and always has been, because I'm an empath. So I was always very sensitive to these things. So, it's just stuff to think about, not to be running in fear about, but just stuff to think about. Like, is this how I want to live? Like, is this how I want to live my life into my elder years, just here, fighting for my life and shit, just in a certain type of way? So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Pamela, you at home? My heart's desire is still to okay. You still feeling it? You disturbed too? Yeah, because some people are hardy. I'm like, y'all hardy because I can't do it. But a lot of my friends live abroad or have been living abroad, and maybe they ended up back in the States. But um, girl, some folks is hardy. I said I'm just not that. I've been through too much since I was young, and the nerves is not set up for this. And I feel you. I feel you. It's been the best thing I have ever done. I've had, different issues and health issues and stuff like that wherever I'm at, but it has been the best thing for me mentally to remove myself. Yeah, the frequencies are heavy. They're heavy. You're doing a lot of shielding. Yeah, I feel you, Maria. Yeah. And as sisters, we're especially attuned to things, so it can be really challenging to also just know what is mine and what is not mine, what is from the outside. You know what I mean? And just keeping things clear, keeping our aura and our fields clear. It gets really, really tricky. And then it just becomes like a heavy weight upon you, you know? Okay, you still got to get your son's passport. Yeah, so that's why I said do your work, do your shielding work, keep selenite. One crystal I would highly suggest people keep all around their house and move with everywhere is selenite, because it can absorb a lot. Also, have your shungites around, have your radiation absorbers, but do what you can for yourself, because it is a constant warfare that we're in, and I think a lot of us have become numb to and very desensitized to where we don't really even realize the level of warfare we're engaging in just by just existing in certain places. And when I came, I've lived in a lot of places that have been quite nice, but when I came back and just really settled into Brazil, that was when I realized, wow, I don't feel like my nervous system is in overdrive all the time here. I'm very aware of what's going on with my home country and all of what's happening that is going to impact the world around that. So that puts a certain stress on me. But in terms of here and where I am in this country and the culture and the movement here, it does not add to that. Like it brings me peace and it helps me to balance. So I highly suggest. Give me 1 second, y'all. I'm called 408. Is that you, Denise? Whoever, I don't know. But is that you? 408 or 48? Okay. So anyway, saying all that to say that, yeah. Anyone have any other remarks or questions or anything like that? I don't want to jump up off. What is the average cost for housing options? And so where I'm at here, and thank you for asking that, in Sao Paulo, this is the most expensive city in Brazil. I won't say the most expensive, maybe the capital, Brasilia, is pretty pricey too. But this is the business hub of Brazil. So I'm not in the cheapest place. But um, it's still way more doable. Like I have a 3 bedroom with my kids. It's small, I'm very urbanized. So, it is a small, you don't get big spreads unless you pushing out a lot of money. But um, but I pay like, I mean, just for housing alone, maybe like a G a month for a 3 bedroom. So that's not bad when you think about the fact that shit, back where I'm from, I probably would have been paying about, 2.5, right? Okay. So yeah, so that is some sorry, I just had to look at that text. But yeah, so it's not bad. Now that is mid-range here for Sao Paulo. Now if you wanted something nicer, bigger than what I have, they have a lot of these kind of more warehousey big apartments. If you're an artist or creative and you just need more space, yeah, then you're looking at 1,700, maybe 2,000 a month. So it's still very doable compared to what our background is and where we come from. And even when I was living in the Caribbean, um, housing had went through a real serious spike where it was really hard. Like, a 1 bedroom was like $1,500, and it just wasn't practical for what you would be getting. The quality of what you would get, and that was kind of part of the turnoff that led me to just leave there for good. But if you leave Sao Paulo and you're not staying in Rio because Rio is pretty expensive too, and you go to some of these other major cities, or especially if you go up north into, Alagoas, Bahia, Pernambuco, some of these states that are in the north of the country, then you're looking at boom, getting a 3 bedroom for, maybe some of the cities will be similar to what I pay, but maybe 800, um, you know, and then you pay your utilities or whatever. And then some of the smaller towns even cheaper than that, but there might not be a lot of options for bigger spaces. A lot of times here I find that 2 bedrooms, and then when you go into 3 bedroom here in Brazil, it gets like the price jumps up a lot, so it can really jump up with that. But that's what I needed because I have a family. So for those who are traveling solo though, you can come stay somewhere like Sao Paulo and get you, a little studio, a kit, we call them kitchenette, and it will cost you like, maybe 500 a month. And you can do that. So there's a lot of options. It just depends on your situation, what you need, if you have a family or not, and you want to make sure everybody has their own space and what have you. But I'm so grateful because, and then obviously my electricity, you think about all of those expenses, you still probably pushing out like $400 or $500 a month for miscellaneous bills and stuff. Shit, at least that in the States here, I pay for utilities maybe 70, $80 a month for everything, including the internet. So it's a savings that takes place when you go abroad that you can't deny, you know? So, yeah. So that's that, y'all. Does anyone have any other questions? I appreciate you guys coming on here and asking questions and stuff. I love this. This is the way I like to do this. And I can sit and I can see everything. I'm on StreamYards. I can see all your questions, and it just feels more relaxed. So I really appreciate you all hanging in there with me. It's awesome. Please put a like on the video too. And if you have any other comments or anything else, hit me up down below. Can foreigners engage in local employment, or do they have to work online or live off of a savings? Another good girl, you on it. Thank you. That's a great question. Um, so if you have a residency that comes with a work, or you have some kind of a work visa, you can work. But what people have always done since forever, even my first time teaching in an actual private school was in Brazil 25 years ago. And I did that under the table. So you can still teach English under the table here. But other than that, it is a country that's organized. You can't really work for established businesses under the table like that. Um, but there is still workarounds, and that's usually in the realm of teaching English, right? Other than that, and they'll hire you just because you're a native speaker, right? But it's not great pay. Like it was better pay in the past. Um, but most of us, we work online. We're either working for an international corporation, a company, working for, even a company in the States, whatever. I was working for Virgin Islands companies, so we would work online, or obviously you try to establish some kind of a business, some kind of an online stream or two or three or four, and that is the way that you're able to maintain your lifestyle. But the lifestyle is, so much cheaper than what you would be paying in the States. That it's like, let me just figure out a couple of things. If I can be somewhere peaceful, just by figuring out what to do online, it's worth it. Oh, thank you, Maria. Thanks for coming on, sis. Yeah, I do offer assistance. I'm gonna have my links below. So y'all, so that's that, Mama D. That's about it. Y'all hit me up. My links will be there. We can schedule. I'll put my link tree down there. So down there in the description. So you can hit that link tree. Let's set up. I got a couple of different things going on right now because I'm doing the tours, doing the consultations for families that want to travel and even individuals. But then I also have some of the wellness stuff that we offer too, and the consultations, particularly for menopausal women, perimenopausal women going through life changes. So we have all of that going on. So that's going to be in my link tree in the bio, in the description, because I'm not on Instagram. So check that out, please. And I appreciate y'all. Please come back. Come back and stay with me sometimes. I'm going to try to do more of this format, more chill, less rushy, and put some good energy in here. Okay, y'all. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you again. Peace, peace, peace.